Okay, we're here with Mars One candidate Dan Carey today. Hi Dan.
Hello. How are you,
Uh,
Heidi?
good. Good. First off, congrats on making it to round three here.
Very much surprised.
Yeah. So, what do you think of the Mars One selection process so far?
You know, um, there's a lot of criticism that's floating around, and I'm certain we'll get around to talking about that in more detail. But all in all, I think it's been pretty good, especially after Dr. Kraft has kind of explained the method that he's been using. Because when you've got to narrow down from tens of thousands and down to a few hundred, and then from a few hundred down to 100, you have to have a method that you can use that's appropriate to the amount of time you've got available. And so I'm pretty comfortable with it so far. And I'm interested to see what comes up next. And I'm pretty certain that that will be good as well. But I will say that over the last few months, as I've reread books on Mars and novels, and everything, or watched movies, and they'd have these teams that are all in conflict with one another, and I keep thinking, who in God's name would pick these people? So I certainly have a lot of confidence in the criterion that I think is being applied to the selection process in terms of focusing on the personalities and trying to find that right mix.
Awesome. So, what inspired you to sign up for Mars One, and what does your family and friends say about it?
There's been a lot of kind of ups and downs about it. My wife was very, very upset initially, and seems to kind of evened off a little bit about it, because she says, well, when they get $4 million out of the 6 million or 9 million that they need, then I'll start to worry about it. And it's 10 years down the road, and who knows, you may get kicked out. And so she's a little more sanguine about it than she used to be. And I think most of my family, they're encouraging, but not entirely convinced that the whole thing will come together. And then, of course, as you know, from being a candidate, your friends can be scattered all over, from thinking it's just not, it's nuts, to those who are very excited for you. So it runs the gamut.
Cool. What do you think of recent media criticisms about Mars One?
Well, being on the inside, as it were, I mean, as much as an insider as any candidate is, as opposed to, real Mars One employees, you kind of have a different perspective, because we're a lot more, I think, forgiving about delays in announcements about the funding. We're a lot more likely to believe Baz when he says he's getting the funding lined up. We're certainly a lot more inclined to believe that the engineering will come together over time, and we're inclined to believe that the selection process is valid. When you see the criticisms that are out there in the media, there's a lot more things that we're aware of, if only because we prepared for the interview going in to get into round three, than your average journalist is going to be when they're leveling their criticism. So, you kind of see the same thing over and over and over again. And after a while, it just sort of, it's like another one of those articles. I think probably the most interesting critical article I've seen over the last few months was, I think, like in the Space Law Review or something similar to that, that looked at some of the legal problems that Mars One is likely to encounter in the coming years. I thought that was a fascinating analysis. But a lot of the other stuff, I just sort of say, well, let's wait, and if the money materializes, as Baz says it will, that will cure a lot of the initial criticism.
Awesome. So, what challenges do you think the candidates in Mars One will face before the colonists actually reach the Martian surface?
Well, Mars One, of course, I think the organization's challenges are going to be money, as always, and then there will be the technological hurdles of getting things to be designed and built in the time frames that we're trying to meet, and that's aggressive, and I think everybody acknowledges that. So, there's always the worry there might be another slip, and every slip means a 2-year slide because of the launch window. And then, as I said, there are certain legal and political hurdles that will need to be surmounted before a launch can actually occur. Certainly a manned launch. I think they may let Mars One get do the unmanned launches without a lot of fuss, but by the time we get around to having people, there's going to be a lot of significant lawyering going on, I think. And but on the candidate side, Dr. Kraft has said that his goal is to make the training so tough that the settlers will say that Mars is a cakewalk compared to what they went through with the stuff that the ringers that he put them through. So I have no idea what that's going to be like. We certainly know there's going to be some isolation testing. I'm interested to see if I make it that far, how well I fare in that, because I've never been cooped up in a small room with a handful of people for months at a time. Most of us haven't. So it'll be interesting to see how well I react to that. And the variety of other challenges that I'm actually looking forward to is just the sheer amount of stuff you've got to learn in order to be a successful candidate and to get selected to go to Mars. I love learning new stuff. So, for me, that's the exciting part.
Cool. So, what would you say to anyone who's considering going into the space industry as a career, or becoming more involved in space settlement efforts?
It's exciting times. The whole space industry is undergoing a real change in its environment with from the small CubeSats and mini-sats that are lowering launch costs or lowering the science costs for a lot of things that we want to do. The reusable rockets that SpaceX is working on, and that is spurring the development of the same sort of thing by Lockheed, and Blue Origin is also working on their own reusable rocket. That's going to completely change the whole dynamic of the space industry. So regardless of whether you're interested in space colonization or not, it's a very, very exciting time to be getting into the space industry, I think. I kind of envy the people who are going into college now and having that as an option. It's a little. I'm a little too old to drop my career and go back to that. But if I were younger, I'd be doing that sort of thing in a heartbeat.
Awesome. Well, that's all the questions I have. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Not in particular. Just it's great to actually get to talk to you face to face, as it were, after being online for so long, by text. But thanks so much for asking me to speak with you.
Thanks, Dan.